Okay, so we are embarking on a really intensive look at grooming. And I know that a lot of people will say things like, well, he was a master manipulator. I even had Dr. Romani that told me, no, the guy was a psychopath and a narcissist and a master manipulator and he groomed you, all these things. But I want people to really understand without any shadow of any doubt how to see grooming, how to discover that you or someone you know, it could be a child, a tween, a teenager, a young adult, that you might be able to pick up on, I'm being groomed or they're being groomed. And I know we talk a lot about narcissism right now, but I want to go back to just some of the simple phrases that Bob Berchtold used 3 years before he ever kidnapped me and ever decided to, you know, um, execute this criminal master plan of kidnapping me, brainwashing me to believe that I was kidnapped by aliens, and so was he, and that we had this nefarious, well, they seemed nefarious, but the goal seemed like I was living the Christmas story. Like I was supposed to have a baby to save a dying planet. Like I was going to have the savior to save this alien planet. And how do you get to that where I would believe that? I was 12 years old. I was pretty naive. I grew up very innocent. I had a wonderful, family and a wonderful neighborhood and a wonderful church community. And, the university was right across the street. I mean, I was surrounded by all these amazingly wonderful people, but it was pretty innocent. It was a smaller town, Pocatello, Idaho. But I think it's really important to go back and share with you some of those specific things that were actual signs of grooming that nobody saw, certainly not me as a 9-year-old or 10 or 11-year-old, but how he used all of those grooming phrases and techniques to get me to eventually believe that story. Like that's really what was happening, that we had both been kidnapped and we were going to have a baby. And he was the person that was going to make sure I was pregnant with a baby to save a dying planet. So to go that far, let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to when Bob Berchtold, we called him Brother B, when he moved into our neighborhood. We met him, his wife, his 5 children at church. He was adored. He was so likable. Everybody really felt like this guy is just he's so helpful. He's so full of service. He's such a wonderful person. He's giving everybody discounts at his furniture store. It was across the board. There really wasn't anybody who didn't like him until Cor Hoffman, who was another one of our neighborhood friends. My dad and Cor were really, really good friends. And something happened where they were out boating with the Berchtolds, the Hoffmans. And again, they're in our neighborhood too, and they go to our church too. I mean, all of us are great friends. We're all in the same, couple of blocks. And the Hoffmans had kids that were our ages. And so, all of us are good friends as kids. And the parents are all now really good friends. And something happened that after that boating trip that they took, Cor said, I don't know, I just always had this weird feeling like something was wrong. He was too nice. He was too much of that. And I look back on that and I think, what if we were to teach our children, our teens, our tweens, what their gut or their feelings were when somebody is too nice or when they have a funny, spidey sense that something's off. We never talk about that. We only teach kids to just trust your elders, do what they say, be obedient. We don't teach them that it's okay to actually have a funny feeling, like our body is responding to something that's off. We don't give them any credit for that, and they don't give themselves any credit for those things. But I believe we could change that by understanding the tactics of grooming that are used in my own story and in millions of other stories of other people who have been groomed and then assaulted, manipulated, and harmed. So, how he got into my head, and then on a different day, we'll, maybe the next solo episode, I'll talk about how he got into my mom's head and my dad's head and how he manipulated everybody. The grooming things that he said to me were things like, oh my gosh, you have such a beautiful voice. You have the voice of an angel, because he heard me sing in church. And then he saw me play Oliver in our community university summer musical. And he just, he would just praise me up and down. You're such a good actress. Oh my gosh, her voice. Oh my word. Have you got her in singing lessons, Bob and Marianne, to my parents? Because she could go to Broadway. I mean, she's so, so good. Those sorts of things, those ego stroking kinds of things. And I don't even know I have an ego when I'm 10. I don't even know what the ego is. They just made you feel good. They made you feel like, oh, this person, likes me. I can trust this person. Another thing that he would always say to me is like, you are such, such a, he wouldn't always use like physical things like, oh, you're such a pretty little girl. He wouldn't say that. He would get more specific. Like he would say something like, you are so neat in your appearance, in how you look. Like you're always taking care of making sure your hair is combed just right. I mean, I just think your hair, he would be very specific, which is also a grooming tactic, because the more specific you can give a compliment, the more you, whether you're an adult or a child or a teenager, the more you think, oh, they really see me. That's a good feeling when somebody really sees you, that you cut your hair or that you curled it differently. That's different than just, oh, you're such a pretty little girl. Somebody might, certainly today, they might get those spidey senses if somebody said that. But to say to a kid, I just love your new haircut, or the way you curled your hair is so cute. You look like a pixie. That was a big deal back in my day, because it was all about the pixie haircut. And when I got my haircut like that, I remember that was like something he complimented me on. Another one that he used to say is like, you're always smiling. My boys, they just seem to have frowny faces all the time. They're always complaining about something, but not you. You seem to always be smiling and be positive. And I would say, oh, well, that's because my dad's like that. That's because that's what my dad always says, that the secret to a happy life is to be, grateful, and to just look at the good parts of life. Look at the glass being half full, not half empty. So when you get somebody that notices those little things and will compliment you on them or use them as a conversation point, maybe they're genuine, but maybe they're not. Maybe they're actually grooming you. So I just thought I would share a couple of those things that came long before he kidnapped me twice and molested me, raped me from ages 12 to, oh, I shouldn't say rape. I know that's is that a bad word on these programs? Well, anyway, that's the real term. Yeah, I said rape. But I mean, this isn't social media, but I don't want to, I don't want to turn off our listeners in any way, shape, or form. So I don't know. Yeah. Okay. 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 That's good. Okay. That's great. All right. So I'm going to go back to, so for those 3 years when, before I was kidnapped, and he was, molesting me, not until he kidnapped me, he was grooming me. He was giving me compliments. That is really how that master manipulator worked. And so the molestation and the rape that I experienced from age 12 to 16 was not happening those 3 years before. So he was either a very patient groomer that knew he would get what he wanted in the end, or he had somebody else, which I'm pretty sure now I know who that was, that he was, doing his dirty work with. And so he was just in the middle of grooming me, but he had somebody else, another little girl. So I guess. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. So in reality, he really began with very simple, trustworthy, nothing that would be thought of as out of the ordinary, just a genuine compliment, you know. And then from there, it sort of built. Like then we were doing, you know, family trips. He had a boat. So we'd go out to, the reservoir and go boating. And then after that, it would be, let's go on a trip, an overnight trip. And so, several times I would go to pick up furniture when he offered me a little job at the furniture store because I could dust the furniture and I get paid like $1 an hour. And I wanted the job, and I was used to doing kind of the same sort of thing at my dad's own flower shop. Sometimes we'd go down and do little jobs, getting things ready, a certain little thing that had to be put together before the busy season for flowers. Sometimes dad would let us come down and do little jobs. So it wasn't unusual. But I think what's interesting is that he figured out how to get me alone without it looking like anything alarming or startling. Mom would drop me off. I'd work for a few hours. She'd pick me up. We'd sit and talk to him, or go get an ice cream or something like that. And then, I'd go home with my $3 or whatever. And yet the escalation of going on trips, like he and his oldest son and I would go pick up furniture and sometimes spend the night because it was up, in Salt Lake or sometimes in Las Vegas. And so it was, hours from Pocatello. Those sorts of things just escalated slowly over time. But again, the times that he took me and his oldest son horseback riding, and sometimes me on my own, became something that was trusted because it had been done before. And that's how grooming happens. It just starts out like building trust, building a friendship, it's just like, oh my gosh, this guy really thinks I'm so cute and so wonderful. And I don't even think of him as this guy. It's just like my favorite uncle or something. It's not like, it doesn't feel romantic. It doesn't feel like anything like that. But he knows that he's stroking something important to me, like because I always wanted to be a singer and I always wanted to do acting, and because I wanted to do those kinds of things, like he would know that's where we really are going to get, I'm going to get close to her. And so those are the things he'd talk to me when I was at the furniture store and dusting the furniture. And he'd say, now tell me, like, have you ever seen a professional musical? Like, have you ever been to New York? Oh, no, I had never been to New York. Well, he'd know what to talk about that would be my interest at age 10, 11, I mean, 12. I find it so fascinating how tuned in he was for every person in my family, in my neighborhood, in my congregation. Like, he just was so likable. He knew what would fly with one person or the other. It was just really interesting as I look back on how much grooming he was doing with everybody, and especially with me, to just build this trust. Like, I could go, anywhere, with him, with his kids, with him and his wife, or babysit with, his oldest son, Jerry. We'd just babysit all the kids while our parents went out. It was just such a slow burn, those 3 years, almost 3 years, before he actually kidnapped me. And I just think it's really important that people know that he, even constructing the whole idea, going back to the beginning of this podcast, when I talked about the mission of, I was going to, with him, be impregnated with a child that would be like a savior to save the dying planet. He didn't get there overnight. He got there through this whole series of, TV shows and science fiction things and movies that we'd go to, and science fiction and the space race, the space age was just really bursting. And so he used everything that was in the atmosphere of our lives. It wasn't like something came in from left field. It was what was already all around us. And he knew how to use all of that to prepare my little brain and my little mind, that somehow I could wake up to that alien voice and immediately believe that there was a dying planet, and that it was my job to save them. So we're going to do grooming. We're going to do grooming for 365 days. And we're going to learn every tactic that we have ever heard of, that anybody else that's out there that has a grooming story and would like to share it and give us specifics. I will put it on our 365 days. I mean, I will talk about it, so that we can learn all the various ways that people have been groomed, and how we can start to, see it, to teach ourselves and our young people to see it. So this project is called 365 Days of Grooming. And every day on, my Instagram, on TikTok, YouTube, these podcasts that we also put on YouTube, I'm going to share ideas and share about grooming and how pedophiles groom, their target and all the loved ones around them. Okay, good idea. Okay, I'll add that. What do you think, Karen? What's the best place? Who's looking at Instagram that could get those stories? I had thousands of them back in 2019. I wish I had all those. On Facebook. I didn't have Instagram then. There's no legal issue if I won't say anybody's name. I would just use their tactic as a talking point. Kind of like I did with the AJ ones that she wrote, the two that I did record. Yeah. I recorded them all, but 3 of them did not have sound. And I'll go back and do those other 3 because they were all. Okay, well, then why don't I do? Yeah. Okay, Jan at janbroberg.org. That's easy. That's an easy email for people to email. Michelle does. She does. I think that'd be great because I do think it's really interesting when it's very specific. Like you can talk about certain things, but it's more interesting when you get a story. That's why I kind of started with those AJ stories, like, the neighborhood and he was the guy that would help you with your homework. He's an older man and all the parents who were so busy and and when you can put in all those little details, that's when people start to go, why are my kids going over to that guy's house? Or what am I doing? Yeah. Yeah, it's really true. Yes, exactly. Yeah, he was pulling back. Yes, right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so okay. Right. Yes, absolutely. I'll say that right now and just say, so if you want to share a grooming story, I'll just start right there. Okay, ready? Here we go. So, if you want to share your grooming story with me, you can email me at jan@janbroberg.org. jan@janbroberg.org. JAN at sign JANBROBERG.org. And if you want to remain anonymous, please just let me know in your email. We don't need to say your name, or I can just do your initials if you would prefer that you kind of know that I'm telling your story and that you don't want your name. Just let me say, your initials. Just make that clear to me in that email. Please send me your grooming stories. We really want everybody's to be represented. Thanks. Okay. How was that, guys? Okay. Do you want me to do that again? And just, or your initials. Okay. 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 All right. Let me do it one more time. Okay. So, if you want to share your grooming story, please send it to jan@janbroberg.org, and your story will remain anonymous. But the more details you can give us about your grooming story, the more we can help others see the groomers, the master manipulators in their lives. Thanks. How was that? Is that okay? Okay. I think we got it. That was good. Oh, that's good. I'm supposed to have some of those skills by this time after, being an actor and telling my story for 30 years, but sometimes I get too lengthy in my, I don't always just bullet point, but I think it was good. Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. Right, exactly. So this is where we start. I think that was a good introduction to this, and I'm excited. Like, if this is our first, kind of introduction on Thursday, and here we're doing it, or we've already started. I guess we should put something out there today. But anyway, okay. Yes. Yes. No, I love that, and I think it looks really good. Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Okay, perfect. This is great. Well, thank you guys. Have a great rest of your day. All right. Yeah, we'll work on that. Yeah, because I know the one where I was in the car and then there's, those 7 things. I mean, if I'm doing something, I'll be like, "Oh, I'm gonna do one of those, like, right now." And I'll just do it and send it to you. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay. Thanks. You are too. Thanks, Eric. Yeah.